Hello all and welcome back to the W&W Pokemon Draft League YouTube channel. Today we are continuing our interview series of all the coaches. This time, I, Jakob Jookeb, head coach of the Charlotte Charizards, will be interviewing the roster doctor, the head commissioner, the Season 2 and Season 5 champ, and a man of many talents even outside of the world of Pokemon, Chris Moriarty Marks, the head coach of the ever-feared Toronto Trick Roomers. Chris, how you doing today?
What an intro. I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm just trying to, relax a little bit. I've got my cup of coffee here and just ready to get started, I would say.
Love to see it. Happy to be here, ready to get into this.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I guess before we get started, I've always had kind of a little bit of a personal question, just kind of a curiosity of mine. How did you come up with the name and the logo for the Toronto Trick Roomers?
Um, so I was the first ever team, right? And the original team name was actually the Boston Bravebirds. Um, and because one of my all-time favorite Pokemon is Braviary.
Mm-hmm.
And but when I was learning competitive, I was exploring the trick room concept because it was something I was unfamiliar with, trying to learn as much as I could. Just go for it by trying it. And I really fell in love with Dusclops and the concept of Trick Room, which you can see if you go back and look at the Season 1 draft. It was, I think, the hardest Trick Room team the league has ever seen. Um, or the most hard commit. And so when it came time to start trying to make things more professional in the league, I went to go get a logo, and I decided to go for the rebrand. And it just made sense to go for the Trick Roomers, the Toronto Trick Roomers, because I was trying to keep that city plus move combo, which is a very unique and distinct thing in the league. So,
Yeah.
and then picking the Dusclops for the centerpiece was an obvious choice, given who made me fall in love with Trick Room. And I had described like a hypnosis swirl going behind that to the artist, and he was like, "Or we could just use a Spiritomb," and I was like, "That's you're cooking,
Yeah.
for sure."
Yeah.
So that's how we got there.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. And I also see that you're kind of repping the old Boston Braviaries there. Yeah. 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 Nice little shout out. And also, fun little fact: I believe you are the only coach who has international representation through your team name.
True, a
Yeah.
bunch of American entities. The rest of you
Well,
says says the guy who's never left.
Hey, to be fair, I've also never left the country or anything, so I can't really say much here either. Anyway, let's get on into the interview. I want to start at the beginning, and not just your competitive beginning. I want to know what got you into Pokemon as a whole.
Oh God, I'm about to date myself here. So I got Pokemon Yellow version the day it came out.
Mm.
My parents were just like, "Hey, this seems like a thing we could give our child who doesn't sleep. Maybe it'll entertain them." And they were
Mm.
absolutely correct. It sure did. And having a game like that when you can't sleep as a kid, it's like mildly strategic but not overly involved. Lots
Yeah.
of cute little things to fall in love with, replayability, all those sorts of things. But it's just a super great thing to have, and ever since then, just having fallen in love with the game, just every game after that we played, and most of them we got day of release. So, um, yeah, and then all the years later, here we are.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a pretty wholesome start to me. I mean, kind of there since day one, long time, Pokemon fan. Don't know if you're a long time Nintendo fan per se, but you've always been there for Pokemon, so that's pretty cool. And now to kind of touch on the competitive side a little bit more, a kind of a personal thing. I know you've had some one-on-one sessions with a former world champ, actually. So my question here is, what was that like? And also, would you recommend anyone to do something like this if they want to get better at competitive Pokemon in general?
Yes. So a bit of a two-parter there. The
Mm-hmm.
first part, what was it like? So specifically, what we did when I worked with always 2018 world champion, I believe.
Sounds
But
about right.
is he helped me team build twice for Players Cups back in Generation 8. And yeah, weirdly enough, it was almost exactly like what we do when we help each other team build in Draft League. One person's sitting there just scrolling through ideas, popping stuff in, and talking about moves and what to cover for, and you sit there and you do the. And it's clearly he's better at it, right? Because he's been doing this for so much longer. But
Yeah.
Yeah, what really surprised me is how similar it was to things we'd already been doing. But one of the teams I was feeling super confident about. It was the Colossal team.
A classic.
And yeah, if you've seen enough of Draft League, you know that I am a resident Colossal player. But so he and I actually did some practicing for that Players Cup, and he had a bunch of different meta teams that I got to practice with a world champion piloting.
Yeah.
And that is an unrivaled experience. Being able to win any of those games felt really good, and then sitting down afterwards to talk about the matchups and stuff was just so crazy to get to hear how his brain walks through some of those matchups and things. Really helped push us in a positive direction. So would I recommend it? Absolutely. If you can afford to go do something like that, it's so good to do. I think there's inherent value in going and talking to somebody who's really good at a thing, or even just watching them do it. It's just such a great way to learn all the little niche details that players that are newer like you and I just have no idea to even be looking out for. And to just watch the speed that someone can handle all that intricacies with is just a fun thing to experience anyway.
Yeah. That's actually pretty interesting to hear that, you relate it so closely to what we do in Draft League, which, I mean, I guess that's how all competitive Pokemon goes to some degree. But I mean, I can kind of still relate to that a little bit because I learned a lot from you specifically. Just kind of sitting down with you, going over how things can kind of work. What are some good combinations? Different moves that you could possibly tech in certain matchups. It's all pretty interesting stuff, and to me it shows just how knowledgeable you were, or still are. Excuse me. When I was first coming on to the scene, and so, I mean, I appreciate you teaching me a lot of this stuff. But I just kind of wanted to know, in Gen 9, we've gotten a lot of new, fun, interesting, strong Pokemon and items and such. And what do you think has been the most interesting to use or fun to use?
So for me, I actually really like the new items a lot. Like Clear Amulet, Covert Cloak, Loaded Dice in particular are three of the ones that I think I've used probably the most out of the new items. Yeah. But I think they just provide such a new flavor that we don't get when there's a new Pokemon, right? It's still just, a new fairy type move or a new set of base stats that's still equal to something. And the Pokemon are different, but they kind of do the same things. Whereas items are a very unique part of the game that do something really wonky.
Yeah.
So I've really enjoyed experimenting with those new items and trying to find impactful ways to utilize them.
Yeah. I've also been enjoying Covert Cloak a good bit. And now kind of shifting it over to the Draft League for a little bit, excuse me. Now that we have completed season 10, which was the first season of Gen 9, there we go. I kind of want to know what has been your favorite Pokemon to use and what Pokemon has surprised you the most.
Oh, God. I think I'm going to have to double answer on both of these.
Okay.
And I'm going to start with Excadrill. I think Excadrill has just been a favorite for everybody in the Draft League that got a chance to use it. I think the Dynamax format was just so good for Excadrill specifically. It was great for weather, and I'm excited to see if Excadrill is still going to hold that same level of power coming into a format where he doesn't get to go big and double HP. But it was just a fun Pokemon, good typing,
Yeah.
very aggressive. Love to have those kinds of pieces. And the other one would have to be Tapu Fini, which is another one of those Pokemon that everybody that's gotten their hands on it has been like, oh, I love this thing.
Yeah.
Not quite as versatile, but just a very good, consistent piece that you can use as a backbone for a lot of different compositions in a team. It just felt comfy to have. So the Pokemon that surprised me, though, would probably have to be Beheeyem and Salazzle.
Okay.
Beheeyem just being a tier 4 that was really consistent for the roster across a lot of seasons, helping us pick up titles. Just a bulky enough tier 4 that can set Trick Room, but also does really, really respectable damage. I just fell in love with the little thing, and clearly I've got some sort of comfort or something with Salazzle. Really enjoyed utilizing it. Just fast, has fake out, low tier fire, does good damage, can toxic out the big bulky steel types that want to stall you.
Yeah.
And it's second for most consistently picked Pokemon behind JCJ and Vaporeon. Second, I think, is me and Salazzle. So, a lot of history there with that one.
Yeah. Fun little stat you threw out there. I actually did not know that. Cool. Good to know. And also, as someone who has, used Tapu Fini and a little bit of Beheeyem, I kind of really can't agree more. They are just kind of... in different regards, they are pretty strong, very fun to use, very versatile, surprisingly. So just very good Pokemon overall. And speaking of specific Pokemon, I wanted to touch on one that you used last season, the good old Torkoal, little Toot Tootle himself. That thing went 11-0 in games out of a total of 6 brings and rocked a 7.0 KDA. You must be really proud of the little turtle, and I wanted to know, don't give away any strats here, but why do you think Torkoal was just such a boon for you in this past season?
That's tough. Like I was talking about with some of these other Pokemon, I think as coaches, you kind of just latch on to some things that feel comfortable for you.
Yeah.
And I have an immense amount of games played with Torkoal from all my Sun Abuse in Gen 8. Love the Venusaur Charizard lead, swap in your Torkoal, have a good time with whoever is supposed to stay out.
Oh, what was that called? Rinya Sun?
Oh, that was once we got Groudon, but yeah, same concept.
You're right.
But yeah, it just was such a versatile piece. We saw lots of different sets throughout the season. We had the Iron Defense Body Press Yawn set. Mm-hmm. We had the Trick Room Charcoal Terrifier Eruption nonsense. We had the just bulky Heat Wave spam. Mm-hmm. We had all sorts of different things that made it kind of just generically a problem that people had to prepare for, which really helped open up in team prep, because I can kind of detect what people's Torkoal answers are going to be.
Yeah.
And that people have to bring that. And sometimes you just bring it in stat check. Apparently nobody was ever ready for the stat check this season. So, also, just a side note, that should have been a 14 KD. He got KO'd by his own teammate, and I argue that doesn't count. His only 2 feints, one real one, and Gyarados knocked him out playing for the big kill leader for the season that he didn't get. So
yeah, really trying to get that little greed in there on the Gyarados, huh?
Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. I would still say a 7.0 KDA is pretty. Yeah, exactly. Pretty respectable. That's a great word for it. Exactly. Speaking of respectable, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier in the intro. You've kind of become famous for being known as the roster doctor in the draft league. And so I just wanted to know, how did you become so good at knowing what a team needs and kind of when it needs it?
Oh God, I don't think I'm good at the win part at all.
Okay. Okay.
Especially if you spell W-I-N, I'm not good at that part.
Uh,
But I think really the thing is, I'm just really good at hearing the complaints or frustrations or, lackluster feelings about a team and
Mhm.
being able to, if there is a source of that, kind of pinpoint it and be like, this or these are what's making that thorn in your side exist. Um, but I think even more importantly, I'm really good at just looking at the available options and being able to go, this kind of alleviates that frustration that you have.
Yeah.
Um, or I think this is a piece that fits more of the play style that you're going for here, or that would mesh with what your team is already trying to do, or augment what your team is trying to do.
Okay.
And I guess part of that also just comes from being able to really get into the weeds and look past a lot of just the generic knowledge of what some of these Pokemon are and can do,
Yeah.
and find the niche things that work in Draft League that don't work somewhere else. So I think that's really just the trick to it all. I think people have shown that they're very quickly catching up and becoming their own little roster doctors. So that's a fun and exciting thing to see happening.
That's fair. That's fair. I guess it's the way you describe it. It sounds like it kind of just comes down to how much effort you want to put into it. Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay. That's fair.
Hard to say.
That's fair. There is a lot that goes into it, so it's probably everyone has their own little thing that they do for it. So,
Yeah.
all right. Moving on here. This next question. I'm sorry if I get just a little bit personal, kind of bringing up some bad memories. But I kind of just wanted to know what has been the biggest regret in the entire 10 seasons that you have played in this draft league.
I'm acting like that's a tough question. It's really not. The biggest regret would probably have to be choking it out in season 7. So for people that aren't aware, in season 7 during the draft, at the time we made the most aggressive trades in the league's history. We sold the season 8 farm,
Yes.
if you will.
Yes, you did.
To make the dream team happen in season 7, to get the Venusaur, to get the Dragapult, to jockey for position, to get some of the other things that we wanted.
Yeah.
And we built an insane roster that absolutely had no business losing that season. And we got to, I want to say it was semifinals.
I believe so.
Disrespected our opponent who was new to the league that hadn't shown offensive Togekiss all season, and we were like, the practice partner even brought it up, and we were like,
no way, no way.
He's not going to do that. And then John did that, and it won him his first ever season.
Yeah.
And so hats off to him, smack in the face to me for the laziness and the bad prep, but just having done so much to make that season happen and then falling short because of being lazy, gotta be the biggest regret.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that, and it also shows a good bit of what John was capable to do even from the beginning. Just kind of able to come out and win his first season. But let's get away from the negative here and let's flip it around a little bit. What has been the moment or moments you've been most proud of?
I think it's actually in direct coordination with the previous answer. Kind of like the question is, in season 8, like I said, we had sold out our ability to draft almost entirely. I think we didn't get to pick until in the 50s or 60s or something.
Yeah.
Which is just ridiculous to think that 40 or 50 Pokemon, maybe even 50-something Pokemon are just gone before you even get to pick one.
Yeah, in a restricted meta.
Yeah, with restricteds. So we ended up with a, air quotes, bottom tier restricted. Literally everyone else picked their restricted first, even JCJ, who held out for a long time.
Yes.
And we didn't get first shot at anything in tier 1. We didn't get first shot at anything in tier 2, really. And so walking away on draft, we felt about as good as we could.
Yeah.
But it was just a devastating situation to be in. And so throughout that season, we actually made the most roster moves in the history of the draft league in a single season, with 10 out of the 13 Pokemon going bye. And so being able to take that god-awful start, make all of these aggressive changes, really overhaul the team, and take it one game away from winning the entire thing, was just a really big testament to, just our ability to adapt and overcome that season. And it was just a really proud moment to have been that far behind and get even one game away.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that I remember, I could be a little wrong here, but I remember that Mewtwo doing quite a lot for you. That thing was a little bit of a menace, despite being low tier.
Yeah.
And
versatility in Draft League is a very, very underrated tool.
It goes a long way. It goes a long way. You are very right. And I guess that also kind of, not to keep harping on this, but that also kind of lends to your roster doctor title, because, most people make 4, maybe 5 roster moves in a season, and you were out there making 10, a whole new draft basically. So, I mean, it's pretty impressive stuff, and I would say that is definitely something to be proud of. But we're kind of getting a little close to the time limit here, so I just wanted to kind of bring it down, bring it back around, end it on hopefully a high note here. We've had a lot of goofs, a lot of gaffes, a lot of laughs, a lot of fun times in the league, and I just kind of wanted to know what's topped them all. What's been the best moment for you?
Oh, that's so easy. Season 7, Week 1, Game 1, Turn 1.
Ah, down to the turn. Okay, I respect it.
Gotta be the pettiest thing I think I've ever done in all of Draft League. So to paint the picture, it's Game 1 of a new season. After we just sold the farm to build the perfect draft, and apparently WTW was like, he doesn't have a Snorlax answer though. So they make a pre-week 1 trade or free agency move to drop their Charizard to pick up the Snorlax.
Yep.
And wouldn't tell me why they did it, which means I instantly knew that it's for me.
Oh yeah.
And he was kind of right. I didn't have a whole lot of good answers, but I did see that I had a foul play user that was pretty slow, not slower than Snorlax. So I ran Iron Ball Vulpix, which is not good if you know anything about Vulpix.
No.
And so he leads Togetic and Belly Drum Snorlax, and I'm looking rough leading Salazzle Vulpix.
Yeah.
But fake out the Togetic, he belly drums. Vulpix is magically slower and foul plays it, and he Dynamaxes it anyway and dives to Heat Wave. And that is one of those silly prep moments where you're like, am I over-indexing on a thing that might not even actually play out? Maybe he just high horsepowers my Vulpix immediately.
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to risk it. But it panned out, and it's got to be the most satisfying team build 2-game moment, and it got to happen first thing in the season, which was great. Yeah, excuse me, great. We also, that VOD is on this channel if you want to go watch it. So.
I would definitely highly recommend going to see that, especially with a little bit of the backstory there. That kind of adds even, it shows just how petty, the whole thing was, which really encapsulates it. I think that's one of the, also something you probably could have said is one of your most proud moments. I mean, it is just a hard read, and there could have been a number of different scenarios that happened there. But, I mean, you got the read, you got to let it all play out, you got the KO with it. What more could you ask for from that? So
nothing.
Exactly.
Vulpix, nothing.
Exactly. And Iron Ball Vulpix, not even Eviolite.
No Eviolite.
Oh my lord. Oh my lord.
All
right. Well, that's all for me. I don't have any more questions. I hope you had a good time in this interview. That's really what I aimed for. All right. That's good. I'm glad to hear it. Well, I guess that is everything from us here. We will be doing a couple more interviews, obviously. So we will be seeing you guys in the next one.
See you
Bye.
in the next one.